What the heck is actually going on with Robert Downey Jr. being Doctor Doom in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? For obvious reasons, this is confusing. I mean, even Gwyneth Paltrow's confused, although maybe not the best metric of overall confusion. She seems quite confused often. However, myself and my community have been doing Doctor Doom streams like all week. That's literally all we've been talking about. It's like RDJ and Doctor Doom. And based on some of the things that were said by the community about this situation and some of the questions that people have, I basically came up with the theory that I think is like chef's kiss. It's so freaking good that I'm convinced this is what Marvel's actually cooking. It makes every single question you have about this casting, about the characters, it makes all of those questions make sense. So the basic idea behind this theory is that the Tony Stark that we saw throughout the Infinity Saga, you know, Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark, like the most famous actor slash character in all of comic book movies, that character is actually Victor Von Doom.
What did he say?
Yeah, it's bananas, but trust me, it makes sense. Let me explain it to you. The most confusing aspect of bringing Robert Downey Jr. back to play Victor Von Doom is how are you going to do that without immediately evoking all of the feelings and thoughts and nostalgia of him being Iron Man? I mean, that's why this is confusing, right? Like, we know Iron Man. Everybody in the universe, the Marvel universe, knows Iron Man. Tony Stark is freaking Iron Man. You don't give this guy like $100+ million and kick Mickey Mouse out of his own private jet so that Robert Downey Jr. can have the jet. You don't do any of that unless you want to utilize all of that stuff we just talked about, all of the fan feelings, all of the universe feelings of Tony Stark. And there was something really interesting this week said by Alex Perez, where he had talked about how Marvel Studios wanted to bring back an evil version of Tony Stark. That was something they wanted for a long, long time. The basic idea is to take the baby face or the face of the franchise, this big heroic figure, and introduce him as a heel. Make him heel turn. Make him the villain. And that's really compelling because all of these people that will see this person as heroic will be faced with the reality of them being villainous and maybe even really twisted. That's like a trope we've seen a lot in different other franchises. It's in comic books quite a bit, but yeah, it totally works, right? Like, that's just the basic idea that Marvel was playing with behind the scenes. And then you add in the fact that you have the Russo brothers, and they do come out and introduce him as Victor Von Doom, but what they say right before they introduce him as Victor is really interesting. They say, thanks to the Marvel multi-universe, something like this is possible, and they picked the perfect person to play Victor Von Doom and RDJ. So they're already talking about the multiverse, and it's weird because like Joe kind of stumbles on his words when he says it. And so it seems like these two very rational, very logical ideas are clashing. Like, number one, he's being introduced as Victor Von Doom, and a lot of reliable people are saying, no, he's actually just playing Victor Von Doom. And yet, it is also true that Marvel Studios wanted an evil version of Iron Man, and they are paying Robert Downey Jr. Money to use Robert Downey Jr.'s face and to use that as shocking for both the audience and the fans. So how does this all make sense? What gives? In my theory, instead of doing all of this contextualizing of the new RDJ Doctor Doom, like everybody's like, oh, well, maybe he's a Stark variant, maybe he's a Victor, the body swaps into a Stark. Instead of all of that, guys, the theory that I am proposing actually retcons the original RDJ Iron Man character. Now, hear me out on this, okay? Because this is how all of this stuff and the big confusing conversation about Victor Von Doom and RDJ will make sense. What they have to do is retcon the RDJ Tony Stark character to have actually been adopted. Not just adopted, but adopted as a young boy, newborn, that was named Victor Von Doom. Now, what's interesting is in comics, they actually did retcon Tony Stark's birth. He's not the biological son of Howard Stark. He was actually adopted. That's something they did in the comic books. So in the theory that I am proposing, Howard Stark and his wife were about to have a baby. They were going to name the baby Tony Stark, but then a horrible miscarriage happens and they are heartbroken. And then they secretly adopt a young boy born at exactly the same time, Victor Von Doom, out of Latveria, or maybe Sokovia in the MCU, whatever, right? And the point is, this would be the character we know, the Tony Stark we know. He's everything that we know. It's not like we're making him evil or retconning anything like that. It's just simply the case that this Tony Stark is actually Victor Von Doom, who was adopted by the Starks. So what that would mean is this RDJ Victor Von Doom is the actual Victor Von Doom. He just exists in a universe where he was never adopted by the Starks. Maybe the actual Tony Stark is born properly with the Starks. That's how you make all of this makes sense. And you know, from a story perspective, I actually love this because this is such an interesting retcon. It recontextualizes the entirety of the Infinity Saga. It makes you look back at a lot of the stuff we saw our Tony do that was kind of sus, and you're like, that was a little Doctor Doom-ish. It would make all of the characters in 616, upon realizing this, feel very weird, feel very strange. And it brings up this really interesting character idea of like nurture versus nature. What makes a person, right? Because if this is Victor Von Doom that was raised as Iron Man, you know, our RDJ, was he maybe evil and we didn't know it? Was he gonna do more wrong stuff, or was he given a better life, a better chance, and became heroic, became the Tony Stark we know via the people that raised him? And another reason that I love this theory is it goes right to the Reed Richards Doctor Doom thing from the comics. Now, it's not Reed and Doom in this scenario. It would be Iron Man and Doom. And it's obviously different because this Victor Von Doom would look at the life of the RDJ Doctor Doom that was raised as Tony Stark and be super jealous of him. But at its core, it is basically the same as the Reed Richards Doctor Doom conflict. Because what that conflict's really based on is Victor viewing Reed as a version of himself, right? Reed and Victor are so similar. They're both so intelligent that they're kind of ostracized and otherized by people. They can't really fit in. And in the comics, Victor views Reed as a version of him that has a plushy life, right? So in Victor's mind, he's like, dude, I could have been Reed. I could have ended up like Reed if I didn't have this horrible backstory, if I didn't come from the dregs of Latveria under the rule of that Baron, if my mother wasn't a witch that was desperate to try to free the villagers, if my father wasn't desperate to try to heal the Baron's child and then be persecuted for not being able to do it. I mean, that's why Victor takes the family of Reed Richards in Battleworld. On Secret Wars, when Doctor Doom becomes God, he steals Reed's life. He steals Reed's family. And it just sort of illustrates for us, the reader, that yeah, Doctor Doom has always wanted Reed Richards' life. Well, you take that into the MCU equivalent, right? Where you would have this Victor Von Doom seeing on the sacred timeline, no less, that he actually had a different life, that he ended up being heroic, that people loved him and worshipped him. And if this is actually Victor and he's seeing a real variant of himself that's raised as Tony Stark, he would be so freaking jealous and so mean, and he would want to come into 616 and scar those people. All those people that loved his variant that was Stark. Oh no, he wants to make you fear him now. Look, I know this would be a massive retcon in some ways, but I'm telling you, this is the one that makes the most sense for me in the story. It's the one that answers all the questions that all the fans have. Yes, it would be a massive retcon on the Infinity Saga. You'd look back at that Tony Stark and be like, oh, so that was actually Victor Von Doom raised as Tony Stark. That's weird, but it's still Tony. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it is Tony, raised by the Starks as Stark, picks up all the mannerisms of Stark, you know, becomes Tony Stark. And can you imagine if RDJ Doctor Doom is so devastating to the multiverse, nothing can stop him? The only thing that could actually stop him is the RDJ Iron Man, the variant of Victor Von Doom that was raised as Tony Stark. That would allow our actual RDJ Iron Man to return and to save the day, fighting against his evil self. It's mind-blowing. I know it's crazy, but I'm telling you, I really think this is real. I think this is what they're going to do. If you like this theory, please spread it out. Share it with other people. I'd like this, you know, to get out there more, because I think I kind of nailed it. And yes, my chat helped me out on the live streams a little bit, but really, come on, it was me. I get all the credit here, right? Let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. And as I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.